There's a sense of objectivity we have to maintain. There's a sense of objectivity we have to maintain here in Good Morning Football. There's teams that we like and teams that we want to win. And I can't believe.
Good evening and salutations, Bills Mafia. Welcome to the Friday Night Forecast, a Cold Front Report live stream. I am your host, Travis Blakesley, and tonight I'm joined by a few guests. I got a good friend in the house, first time, maiden voyage. We got Herm, the displaced Buffalonian. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Go Bills.
Yeah. Thanks for joining me, Herm. And as always, the incumbent, Evan Zinger. How you doing, buddy?
I'm fantastic. Hope you two are doing well, too.
Of course. We got Bills football in a few days. I mean, can't get better than this. It's a slow build-up, but we're here. The camper lot's full. Let's get down to it. So we all know our opponent coming up is the Pittsburgh Steelers. We've played them the last three seasons, I believe. Let's make it 3 in a row. You know, we won the last 2. But before we really get into this week's game, I kind of want to paint a broad stroke on what happened last year. And even before we get into that, I just high-level stuff with the Steelers. They're a team where they started off 11-0. Some wins, I would say, were kind of fluky. I remember the Dallas game was close. There were a couple ones they pulled out at the end, but a team that relied heavily on the pass. I mean, they threw the ball more than anybody in the NFL, and it was kind of a pop gun type pass game where Ben Roethlisberger was getting the ball out in about 2 seconds. They had no run game, and I believe with the combination of his arm after post-surgery or shoulder post-surgery and not really having an offensive line that could protect him, they resorted to very un-Steelers-like football. This is an organization that has predominantly won with defense and running the ball and passed when they need to, and they've always had a pretty good offensive line. So I really think the jig was up and the wheels started falling off the week prior to Buffalo, because I believe they lost first to Washington, and then they came into Buffalo. And then to dovetail off that, we'll kind of get into the last week 14 of last year's game. It was kind of a punt fest back and forth. Teams kind of feeling each other out. And then obviously the big play by Taron Johnson really sparked everything in the Bills' favor, in my opinion. I'm going to lead off with you, Herm. What do you think some of the factors were regarding the outcome of the game last year?
Well, I took a look at today, actually, a lot of the highlights. I remember the game distinctly, as you said, because they lost. I was looking forward to them coming in undefeated so that we could be the one to knock them off. But let's see, they only ran the ball for 47 yards on us. And as you said, that was definitely not typical Steeler football. And we were fortunate, though, to even have that halftime lead because we didn't play well. They had the pass rush was ferocious on Josh in that first half, and we turned the ball over a couple of times, if I remember correctly. But the third quarter, we turned it around, and it was Josh to Diggs. If they couldn't stop him, and which became the theme. That was our theme pretty much a lot of the year. But that pass rush that Pittsburgh had was ferocious, but they couldn't run the ball, and even Ben they dropped a lot. They dropped some balls too on their side, if I remember correctly. But the defense played pretty well, and we held them in check. But as I said, we were fortunate to have the lead at halftime in that game, but because of the pick six, and then we came out in third quarter and we played very, very well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you put a bow on it nicely there. Evan, you got anything to add to it? Anything stick out to you from last year?
Well, the one thing I do want to point out is the difference from last year's game to the game 2 years ago. Mainly because, both games, at least initially, were a lot more predicated on whoever was basically going to score last would probably win, and it was just like a purely defensive kind of game. And last year it was looking like that for the entire first half, and it was capped off with a great defensive play. Right. And then I don't know what happened at halftime, what they put into Diggs and Allen's drinks or what, but Diggs just went off. Allen was able to find him. Yeah. And the Steelers had no answer for that. The Steelers game 2 years ago was one of the ones where I think it's a very good game to look back on even now. Is it to say like, hey, if your offense doesn't have a good game, this is how you can still win games? Because I remember after that game, I'm known where I'm on social media as a bit of a Debbie Downer. They had clinched the playoff spot with that win, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, yeah, they won 17-10, and Doc Hodges was playing, and he threw 4 picks. That game had no business being 17-10.
Right.
Like, it should have been more.
You're right.
Not like a win's a win, but still. But the fact that last year was a lot more convincing, and then this year, I'm a lot more confident going in that they'll just win. It's I think it's just really telling of how much this team's grown.
Yeah, I like that you brought up the game 2 years ago, because like you said, the fact that they had 2 shots at it at the very end, we got the pick. Who was it? Was it Wallace? I guess. Did he have the first interception?
It was Poyer had the first one, and then
Poyer
Wallace
had the first one,
and
then yeah.
Yeah.
They iced it, and then they had to ice it again, which was, listen, like you said, a win's a win, but you can kind of see the growth, the upward trajectory of the Bills in putting those games into context. A couple things going back to last year's game that stuck out to me was the third down conversion. I don't think it matters how good your team is, how well you're coached. If you're only converting 1 of 10, you're not going to win football games. No. And that's exactly what the Steelers did. They were 1 for 10. And if you have no run game and you rely on the quick passing game, if you get behind the sticks early, you really don't have a shot. And that's kind of what happened. And as we get into this week's game, I think we're going to see a lot of, bump and run. We're still going to play our defense, but I think we're going to see the box loaded. We're going to see our corners up and just make Ben beat us deep. So kind of transitioning towards this upcoming game, we've heard every coach talk about how, each roster is different. They're not always the same. McDermott says it all the time. So is there any major differences that stand out to you, Evan, between this year's roster and last year's roster? Why don't you start off with either the Bills or the Steelers, and then Herm, you can pick up the opposite team.
Okay.
Well, with the Steelers, I'd say, the 2 big things that I'll point out sort of cancel each other out, which is really problematic for them. Based on what I've heard in the preseason from Steelers beat reporters and such, Ben's arm's looking a lot better. Like last year, it just looked absolutely cooked. Like he couldn't throw the ball past like 10 yards with any sort of accuracy. And supposedly this year's it's looking a lot better. Of course, writers tend to say things like that, but in this case, if an arm's looking that bad and then it gets looking at least decent again, I think that's something that's worth honestly reporting on. At the same time, their offensive line was starting to show weaknesses last year, and it got even worse. So I don't know how far Ben's going to be able to push it down the field, because even though I did just say his arm looks better, apparently, he still doesn't have a fantastic arm at this point. Like, he's got a pretty average arm, I would say. So, but yeah, like I said, with that, combined with that worse O-line, I don't see Ben's average depth of target, let's say, being much larger than it was in last year's game.
Herm, do you see anything different that the Bills bring to the table this year versus last year's meeting?
Well, the addition of some edge. I think Rousseau. So our pass rush is definitely improved. So, which feeds right into the fact, as you said, if our cornerbacks play bump and run, if we're pressing and we're in that box, because I don't really believe running the ball, as Evan said, their offensive line is suspect. It wasn't that good last year, and they ran 47 yards on us in that game. You lost Connor, Benny, the other Snell is out. Yeah. Snell is out, but you got the kid from Alabama, which he had a pretty good preseason, and I watched him. I mean, he was talented. I liked him at Alabama, but at the same time, as Evan said, and I agree with you, if you make him throw the ball downfield, I think they'll have problems. And our outside, I believe with Ebenezer is bigger and better. I think better prepared this year. But Rousseau, I think our pass rush is going to be much more improved. So I think our defense is going to be different. I believe we can score. I think our offense is prepared to score on anybody. That last game when Josh played the quarter and a half in that last preseason game, we just moved up and down the field. He got the ball out of his hand. I think, what did we throw, 15 passes in a row? Or we ran the ball one time and
business as usual.
Oh yeah. So and I think TJ Watt now is going to want to come out there and earn his money now. So he was a tough player. And Hayward, what's interesting is, I don't know if you got the defensive coordinator for the Steelers. I'm going to read this to you. This was pretty interesting. Yesterday, he said that Hayward said that Allen is a great runner and everything. And so the defensive coordinator said if he wants to be a running back, we're going to treat him like a running back. And I hope he's trying to finish runs like a running back, because we'll treat him like a running back, and let's see how he handles it. So anyway, that should be some good locker room fodder for the Bills, because they said, he's 6'5", 240, and he likes to take on. I mean, I don't want him to, but sometimes I don't like him finishing runs like that. I want him sometimes to slide a little bit, but Josh will be Josh.
Well, I think he's trending in the right direction, and I definitely believe there'll be more people in his ear after taking that big payday. He'll be a little bit more protected. But you guys both bring up great points as far as the difference between then and now. Something that I would like to add, I mean, obviously, Najee Harris, Gregory Rousseau are the two the polarizing topics. Very obvious. They're both the first round picks. And frankly, I think they could have fit in on either team. We could have taken Harris, because everyone was talking running back for Buffalo. I wasn't a huge fan of that, but that's, that doesn't matter. One thing that is different is the offensive coordinator for the Steelers. I believe Matt Canada. So this is a guy who was a quarterbacks coach for the Steelers a few years back. He's been an offensive coordinator a bunch in college, and the bill on him is he runs a similar offense, but with a lot of pre-snap motion. So expect to see a lot of receivers moving, inside, outside, left to right, little window dressing, kind of what we see from Dayball's offense.
I do have to say, I find it very unfair that the Steelers are allowed to hire a whole country to run their offense as opposed to everyone else.
Very true.
It's true.
But yeah, and then the other slight thing that sticks out to me is there is no Steven Nelson anymore, and they really didn't replace him. I believe their slot receiver from last year, Sutton, is kind of playing both. Like when there's two corners on the field, he'll slide outside, and then when they need that nickel, he'll kick inside. But that's kind of spreading someone thin who didn't necessarily have a great game to begin with. So
and they traded for Ahkello Witherspoon, who I think he's really underrated. But
I agree.
He's not one of those main guys.
He's not an elite. I agree. Right.
Yeah, and especially they're going to be matched up against. It's not a favorable matchup. As Herms, you brought up the preseason, or actually, Evan, you brought up the preseason. I went back and watched most of the first half of the games because by the time you get into the second half or even the second quarter in some of those games, you're talking about guys who may be bagging groceries at this point. But overarching, Harris, he looked the part for sure. Ben still can't throw deep. I watched. He played 2 series or 3 series in one of the games, and he looked. The offense looked good. Fryermuth is going to pose a problem in the red zone, and we've been susceptible to that. But I was listening to a Pittsburgh reporter or a content creator, and he was saying how he threw 40-something yard pass down the field. Well, what actually happened was the receiver had the defensive back completely turned around. The defensive back had no idea where the ball was, and the receiver actually had to stop to catch the ball. So, yes, they completed the ball, but by no means was it where it was supposed to be. So,
yeah,
it's still out. I think he is one-dimensional. He may have a better arm. He may be stronger, but at the end of the day, it looks like a Peyton Manning in his twilight. Evan, what were you going to say?
I don't know if either of you have seen it because this was posted like a while ago because this was like just at the start of training camp when everyone was starting to come in. People give like PFF a bunch of shit and stuff like that, but sometimes their social media team tweets out absolutely great stuff. And one of the things they tweeted that got a lot of Steelers fans really mad was it was just a clip of Ben and Najee Harris playing just like a little pitch and catch like 5 yards apart, and the caption was Ben practicing his deep ball.
True.
And in that Lion game, that was one play in particular where he hit Najee Harris about 7 yards coming across the middle, and he turned it into a 46-yard run. And it was a nice run. You're right.
That is what we're going to have to worry about.
Right.
We'll get down to our keys and players to watch in a little bit, but you're right, Herman. That really stuck out to me. The Bills have been notoriously bad at tackling, and when you hit the back out of the backfield like that, you're just asking for that. You're asking for trouble.
Yeah.
So let's transition into players that we kind of need to keep an eye on, whether it's our own on the Bills or guys on Pittsburgh. Let me start. Let you guys think on it. We'll each give one of each side. So, I'm not going to go with the obvious of the, obviously TJ Watt and, as we spoke, Najee Harris are big time players, which the game plan is going to be based around for sure. For me, I kind of went with Kendrick Green. This is a rookie center who was drafted in the mid-round. He actually ended up on the injury report this week for an injured thumb. Now, if that's on his snapping hand, that could pose a problem. I remember Eric Wood did an interview speaking on how if you don't have feeling in your thumb, shotgun snaps are tough to handle. So this is a young guy, mid-round guy who, is stepping into a leadership role. I mean, most of the times your center is calling out the protection.
He's calling the line calls, right?
Yeah. So you got a young guy who may be a little banged up on a very suspect offensive line, which, their right tackle is a backup. Their left tackle is I could have easily went with that guy as well because he's a rookie too. But the center, I guess it was a Baltimore game when we saw a lot of bad snaps, right? And was that in the playoffs?
Well, bad snap got Lamar concussed.
Yeah, well, that's kind of my thought process.
Having said all this, Kendrick Green is coming from, or is replacing essentially Marquise Pouncey, who retired, who I've long thought is one of the most overrated players in football. And one of the reasons why is because he is a notoriously bad snapper. And he would always snap balls into the ground over guys, like not necessarily way over their heads, but high enough to cause like maybe a bit of gripping issues. Like it happened all the time. So
you're saying you should have been a guard?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
the Pouncey brothers. Yeah, but
Mike Pouncey was good. Marquise.
Yeah, but they were like you said, reputation, right?
Yeah,
more so than actually. Right.
So let me get to my Buffalo player, and I'll let you guys go from there. So for me, it's going to be that defensive line, and the guy who lines up in front of said center, Kendrick Green, is going to be Mr. Ed Oliver. You heard Leslie Frazier say he's going to be he has a chance to be a breakout player this year. Let's see it. I'm ready to see it. I want to, let's get some penetration in the middle. Let's push the pocket. And regardless, I mean, if you know what to watch, if you can get up in the face of the quarterback and let your ends get the sacks, that is, I mean, you're doing your job, even if you don't go down in the stat book. Let me pass it over to you, Herm. Give me a guy on each side who you're looking at.
Well, when you say the superstars for the Steelers, in my mind, who's going to probably be Ben Juju Schuster. But I like to think that Trey can shut him down. I believe that. But also, we got to put some pressure on Ben to make that happen. And in terms of what you just said with Ed Oliver, I'm going to go to the game last night. The guy, Vea, big Vea, right. He was pushing the center back right into Dak's pocket. So I agree with you on that. In that, if Ed Oliver can do that finally, and just hold down that what the position was, I don't know if they still refer to nose tackle. If you, as you said, if he can collapse, just push that back, and we get the edge rushers. So for me, with the Steelers, Juju Schuster. With the Bills, Edmonds. I mean, I want him to, he takes a lot of heat online because he was all pro. I read a lot of stuff. Oh, why is he all pro? He interceptions, he drops some. He's always late. But I believe, because what is he? He's still 22, 21 years old. He's
23. Still 23 years old.
Right, he's very young.
Fourth
year. And
this is him younger than he is. He's a seasoned vet by this point.
Yeah, he's a vet. But I think he, with him, Milano, and you got Klein coming in there, we could have an elite linebacking core. But he needs, because like you said, Najee Harris, they're coming out of the backfield, the running backs, and we need to cover. Or you and I talked last night with Kelsey and those guys, the tight ends coming down the middle. So I'm looking for him. As you said, they want Oliver to break out. I want Edmonds to just make more of a statement because there's always he has a lot of haters and that feel he's overrated. Feel he's overrated. You there, Evan? Yeah, there you go. So I want him to open up the season and have a big game.
Good points, Evan. What do you got?
It's probably going to just come down to overall matchup, and I want to see, because we know that Darrell Williams can hold his own against TJ Watt, but I was reading that the Steelers are probably going to limit TJ Watt's snaps because he hasn't been practicing with the team. That's just something the Steelers do. You
don't practice,
you're
going to get a soft tissue injury. Mark my words.
Mm-hmm. Like, regardless of him doing stuff on the side on his own,
it's not the same.
No, it's not the same. And even I feel like some teams, they'd go like, "Oh, TJ Watt, we'll play him full anyways," kind of thing, right? We just paid you a ton of money to go play our full game for us. But I'm really interested in seeing the matchup between Cameron Hayward and whoever starts at right guard. Because I don't believe they've announced the starter yet. Have they officially?
No. They're going to rotate him, it's my bet.
Yeah, and the thing I've always been concerned about with that right guard spot is, two things. Number one, Feliciano played last year for the most part there. And while he wasn't great or anything there, it's consistency there at least. And now they moved him over to left guard, and now they're either putting Ford or Butker over there. And at this point, it honestly seems like they're trying to, I don't know how to word this, but they're buying into the sunk cost fallacy with Ford, because it seems like they're moving everyone around to try to put Ford in there somehow.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if Ford just doesn't have it, maybe he just doesn't have it, So I would have left Feliciano over at right guard and put Ford or Butker over at left guard, but too late, neither here nor there now. I would just like to see whoever plays at right guard try to hold their own against Cameron Hayward on that side.
Yeah, Cam Hayward is very underrated. He was the main driving force of the pressure last year, in my
Right.
opinion.
Yeah.
Um, we kind of lucked out that Stefan Tuitt is not going to play. He's on injured reserve. I think Watt and Tuitt combined last year had 26 and a half sacks, most in the league. So, that's helpful. But they definitely have some guys there for sure. So let's transition into what we think some of the keys to victory. Last year, obviously, we spoke about the Taron Johnson. That was kind of the spark. And then Stefan Diggs taking over those two drives back to back, along with unsung guys like Levi Wallace, who he did give up a touchdown, but he held Claypool and Deontay Johnson to 0 catches. I think he only gave up 2 catches overall, and he iced the game with a pick. So I'll start with you, Evan. What do you think is the key to victory on offense?
On offense, I want to see how Josh can spread it out to number 2, number 3, number 4, tight end, everyone else except for Diggs, because last year it seemed like there was a solid correlation between in the first half the Steelers shut Diggs down. Either they shut him down or Josh wasn't seeing him. But then when all that came undone in the second, it was like Diggs was just running through them like butter, essentially. So it wouldn't shock me if they came in with a conscious effort to double or even triple team Diggs at times. So it's going to be important for Josh to be able to spread it over to Sanders if he plays, who's questionable, of course, or Davis, or get Knox involved, get the running backs involved somehow. That would be for the offense, I would say.
Herb, how about you?
Well, Evan's right. One thing about it with Diggs not playing in that last preseason game, and he did hit. He went to Davis. He spread the ball around, which is a great thing. But I would love to see us run the ball. I mean, when we do have an opportunity, because we're definitely going to spread the offense out there. I mean, there were times when we had all 5. There was nobody in the backfield. He had Josh, and he was just tossing the ball around. But at the same time, at some point in time, I'd like to see us run the football. And Dable was pretty. I have to say, the offense was much more creative last year, even though there were times when I thought they went conservative, or I don't know if McDermott, if that's since he's the head coach, if that was his dictating that type. Once we had some leads, as if you remember, even in that Ram game. That game should have been done, and then we got conservative and we allowed them to come back and actually take the lead, and we were fortunate to win that game at the end of it. But I agree with Evan. Spread the ball around, because obviously everybody in the league, when they play us, they know Diggs is his number 1. That goes without question. And Pittsburgh in particular, just by the way he destroyed them in that third quarter on those 2 drives in particular, was just they were playing catch. And they couldn't stop him. But if I were Pittsburgh, I'm loading up, as Evan said. I'm putting 2-3 men on him and make you go to your other options.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. I like the way you said, run when you can. When you have the numbers, run. So to me, the key would be spread them out, go 4 wide, go 11 personnel, do what you need to do to get these defensive backs spread out, because Pittsburgh has a solid front 7, a very good front 7.
That's right.
But outside of Minkah Fitzpatrick, there's a lot of, I'm not going to say they're bad, but there's a lot of average players, and they're thin, especially. And we go deep at the wide receiver and even just a skill position. So spread them out. When you have the numbers, obviously run the ball. But what the difference between the first half and the second half schematically was those draggers, those short drag routes across the middle killed Pittsburgh. And guys like you mentioned, Diggs really feasted off of that. And then you get solid contribution from guys like Beasley and Davis, and we really don't know what we have in Emmanuel Sanders. So, I mean, I think you guys hit the nail on the head. We'll move over to the defensive side. I'll start off, let you guys think a little bit on it. To me, it's going to be making Ben Roethlisberger beat you deep. Obviously, you have to stop the run. Najee Harris is going to be a focal point. They drafted him in the first round for a reason. So make Ben beat you deep. I'm not necessarily saying play man coverage, blitz, just don't err on the side of caution. Let the cornerbacks play aggressively, because we do have elite safeties to catch anything over the top, but really, really make him beat you deep. Herm, why don't you go?
Well, on the I actually would. I don't think he's mobile at this. I mean, at this particular stage, what's he, 39 now? His arm, as both of you have said, put pressure on him right away. He can't move around that much, so he's got to get rid of the ball quickly. Earlier in the segment, as you said, with the press coverage, you make him get rid of the ball quickly, and you're putting some intensive pressure on him from the edge or bringing guys up the middle blitzing. He's got to get rid of the ball, and our back, the secondary, and the linebackers in particular, because if he does have to get rid of the ball quickly, he's going to be looking to throw it out in the flats or crossing patterns really quick. But if you put pressure on him, I think at this stage of his career, I don't think he can handle it consistently. He's not mobile. He's going to stand in there. All right, he's Big Ben. He can have 2-3 guys hanging on him, but I don't think he's there anymore. And I think he's vulnerable. And their line is, as we all three of us have agreed, is suspect. So they got to do some blocking. And I don't think they can protect Big Ben at this stage. So let's see. Let's open up this season and let our defense be. I want them to be super aggressive.
Good point, Evan.
I would say you have to mainly focus on, let's say you were to draw an oval around the offensive and the defensive lines. It would basically be the play of, at least on defense, of all the players that are directly on that line. So basically Milano, Klein, and Teron Johnson, because those are the guys that are going to take away as much of those really quick inner slants that Ben likes so much. And if you don't have time to throw, those are the kind of the passes you're going to want to throw the most. And if you can take away those, he's going to have to hold onto the ball longer, and that'll expose that poor offensive line even more.
Great point. Now, I was supposed to bring up injuries a little earlier, but as you guys both know, no star. Not a great look. I think we'll be okay either way. It's just a shame that everything was built up for him to return, and it's going to help our run defense. It's a two-part question. Do you think it'll be a big impact not having him? And who do you think will fill in for him? Herm, why don't you take this one?
Well, Oliver, that's he's there. He's there.
Well, I think Oliver would have already been.
He would have been there, but it's really very similar to last year, where I think coming in behind, who's going to come in there and spell Ed. I want to say, what's the kid's name?
Phillips.
Well, all right. Well, Phillips played pretty well. He played pretty well in the preseason, I have to say. I was surprised and impressed.
With Zimmer, were you thinking?
No, I'm thinking, what's the young Bam?
Butler.
Butler. Yeah, Butler.
Yeah. So,
Butler. And that's going to have to be a little bit by committee there. But as I see somebody just chimed in, Zimmer-Phillips combo isn't a bad thing. I'm looking at that.
Yeah. Going to have to do for sure.
Yeah. And what's going to have to do, because we didn't have him last year, and and hopefully let him get healthy and come back and play well. But Oliver, that's his Yeah, I mean, he was our first round draft. We expected him, and this is his time now. So he's got to come ahead and produce. He's got to produce. I mean, he can't play. He's not going to play every down, but that's your job, and you're being very well paid to do it.
Anything to add, Evan?
Well, one of the things just overall, this would be if Oliver does take up that role that Star does for this game, which I hope doesn't happen because he's obviously smaller. It'll probably be Butler or Phillips or Zimmer because they're bigger guys. But I do want to see Oliver improve his overall run defense a lot more. It was really strange because coming out of Houston, he was like people knew him for rushing the passer, but over his career, he was a much better run defender.
That's right.
And since he's gotten to I almost said the big leagues, I'm thinking of baseball. Since he's gotten to the NFL, it's been the complete opposite, and that's a little concerning. So I'm hoping they don't have to play him in a position where it's going to be where the onus is going to be on him to, play most of the run that way. I hope that either one of the other guys who are going to take Star's place can eat those blocks well enough to let the other linemen do their thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because outside of Star Lotulelei, we really don't have an actual one technique. Vernon Butler's a big guy, but he's made all his hay. Not much hay, but the hay he made in Carolina was at 3-tech. He was just a mountain of a man who was very athletic. That was why he was drafted in the first round. Phillips, very similar. He's a big, strong guy, but in college in Stanford, he was a penetrating defensive tackle. Zimmer is that guy who gets mixed up in the dirt. He's the fastest guy on the defensive line. I think they clocked him in at almost like 19 miles per hour.
Defense.
Yeah,
It's true.
So, he's a motor guy. Kind of like I'm not comparing him to Williams, but the same size, smaller, undersized, really high motor guy. So yeah, it's like it's one of those. There's a very, very few things we can get on Bean and McDermott about and Leslie Frazier, but it's not having the size. They have this infatuation with smaller defensive linemen interior, and then these gigantic long guys on the exterior of the line. So it's interesting. I think that we're versed enough of not having Lotulelei to be. I think we'll be okay because, like you guys both said, we didn't have him last year. So, we did better in the second half of last year. As long as we don't have Boogie Basham lined up next to, or F.A. Obata lined up next to Ed Oliver, and we have two sub 300 guys in the middle, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah.
But that outside of a passing situation. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because it is a starter who may not play. It looks like everybody else is trending in the right direction. Karen Johnson, they said it's now a splint. During the Jordan Poyer event, the first thing I was looking at, he was there, and the first thing I was looking at his hand, and he had it wrapped up. There was a soft cast on it, and he's sitting there watching the video. You see him messing around with his hand. I don't know if it's his wrist or he probably broke a bone in his hand or something like that.
So they had him in a splint. Oh, okay.
Yeah, now he's trend. I mean, they'll probably if that's the case, it'll probably be a small club. Come
to punch
game
the
time.
ball.
Yeah, well, I don't think we'll see any house.
That's right. Good.
I'm not sensing any beat up punches from someone whose hand is wrapped up like that.
Yeah, dropping the hammer. All right, so this is the portion of the show where we're going to forecast the game. Now, before we get into that, I just want to encourage everyone who's watching, not only the overall game prediction, but drop some predictions, forecasts, stat lines in the chat. We'll pull them up at the end of the stream, and we'll give you our takes. We'll let you know how we feel about that. But it could be: is it going to be cloudy, or is it going to be? Are we going to rain? Anything? Are they going to show the Niagara Falls on the during the game before they go to break? Anything like that? Just drop the comments. We got a couple, but I want to kind of populate that before we get to the end of the show. So, the game's 2 days away. We've marinated on it, and what always happens with me, at least, is I'm super confident until the week of, and then I just start kind of picking apart our team and kind of magnifying the other team a little bit. And it might just be like Evan said, we're both the young guys. We grew up in the midst of the drought, so it's very hard to shake that pessimist off. But I don't, obviously there's always a way to win or lose a game. Any given Sunday rings true in the NFL, but the matchups definitely favor Buffalo. I think a lot would have to go wrong for the Bills to lose. I think what would have to happen would be a ball-controlled type offense from Pittsburgh and the Bills turning the ball over multiple times. Kind of like what happened against the Jets in 2019, where we should have won that game handily, but it was like we were able to pull it out either way.
Should have blown them out, right? And had to.
Yeah.
And then Josh had 4 turnovers in the first half or something?
Yeah. It was like, Beasley bounced off his hand right into.
Yeah. But I'm not talking
the
statistics here. Yeah, I'm talking stat line here.
Yeah. No, you're right. But so what I'm thinking is that the Bills come out early. They're able to score multiple touchdowns in the first half. I think the Steelers will have to transition from getting the running game going. But I do think that Najee Harris will have a good game out of the backfield. I think the Bills will have a handle on the game for a majority, kind of the way Seattle game went last year, and it looked closer on the scoreboard than it actually was. So I'm going to go Buffalo 35, Pittsburgh 27. Evan, what do you think?
I'm going to say the score is going to be lower than that. I'm going to go with something more along the lines of 27-17, I think. Because I think Buffalo's going to go up early, maybe by 2 touchdowns, and then they're going to try to play catch up, but they're going to sprinkle too much of the run in there, and it's not going to allow them to score enough points. So I think it's very possible that, if you look at I think it's possible that it could be one of those games where if you look at the tape, you could say that the defense individually on a play-by-play basis for the Bills doesn't play very well, but just because of the way the Steelers handle their play calling, it makes it look a lot better than they really are. So, but either way, win's a win.
Yeah, I think Andrew is in somewhat of agreement. Minus a point or two. But Herm, what do you think's going on?
Well, I thought about this earlier in the day, so I'm ready. 31-21, Buffalo.
31-21. It looks like a lot of you guys out there are looking for that 10-point victory.
Well, and they're going to score late. It may be, like as you said, the game's not as close as the score indicates. But
garbage time TDs.
We got a lot of those against us last year for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna start with a W. Let's not even play the game. Let's chalk it up and we'll move on to Miami. Right?
Yeah, that's how it works, right? Yeah.
If only it were that simple, right?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll roll into the segment that I like to call the 5-day forecast. Now, this is a buy or sell type segment where we're gonna throw out a forecast and we're gonna let you know. Is it going to be clear? Is it a hot 90-degree day, sun shining, guaranteed? Or is it a little overcast? Or maybe a torrential downpour? Who knows? So let's get started. Herm, I'm going to go to you first. Najee Harris held to under 85 rushing yards.
Clear.
All right, so you think it's going to happen, huh?
Yeah. I believe the defense.
Now, there's definitely a path to that. I agree. If the game goes the way you think it will go,
that's right.
Abandoning the run sounds like a definite possibility. Evan, how about you?
I'm going to say cloudy, so like a 50% chance kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, because I can't pick sides. No, the reason why I say that is because I think I mentioned this on a previous show, where I have a feeling that it could be partially volume and then one big run, and that puts them up over a certain milestone. I could definitely see that happening, because there's always going to be Bills' run defense overall is pretty weak, and even if they have a good game against the run, there's probably going to be one or two plays where you can see that old run defense start to creep in. So,
yeah, I was initially feeling good about this. I was going to give it a nice sunshiny, clear day, but I know I'm not going to say that one player makes that big of a deal, but just the news of hearing Starr not playing, it shifted me. It's one of those where it pays to be a weatherman, because you're not right or you're not wrong. But in this segment, we got to choose. So, unfortunately, Herm, I got to go against you. I'm going to go cloudy, just for the fact that Evan made a great point. There could be one of those garbage times, like where they spread him out and they do a delayed handoff and he gets 25, 30 yards on one run.
Okay.
When we're playing. And we do play a lot of prevent D when we're up, so it's definitely possible. I think it's a tough one. All right, let's move on to a Tuesday.
It's gonna go either way, right?
Well, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I guess the way I wrote it, Harris held to 85-yard rushing. That there's no wiggle room. All right, let's get to the Tuesday. 3 batted passes at or around the line of scrimmage. Evan, lead us off.
I'm going to say that is cloudy as well, simply because I think Ben's going to get that ball so quickly that, the way linemen tend to play, they try to get a pass rush move off quickly, and because Ben will get that ball out so quick, they won't even have time to get their hands up, kind of thing. So
I'm going to take your point and reverse it on you. I think that's exactly the reason why they get it. So I'm going to
think they're going to sort of put their hands up immediately, kind of thing.
I think the game plan is say, hey, listen, this guy has gotten the ball out in 2 seconds. He completed 26 passes all season farther than 20 yards. And I think like 65% of his balls never traveled more than 9 yards past the line of scrimmage. So I think the defense, Eric Washington and co. is definitely telling these guys, get your hands up. Don't expect to get to the quarterback. But when we got dudes that are 6'5", 6'6", 6'7" on the field, I'm very confident in this, and I'm going to definitely say clear. How about you, Herm?
I got to go with Evan on this one. I'm cloudy, just because Ben is big off the bat right there, and he's going to get rid of that ball. And as he said, when a quarterback is instructed, or Ben's making that decision to get rid of it quickly, those linemen are going to just try and they can't cut block them any longer, but they're going to just make their block, and he'll get it off quickly, either out into the flats, which that way it's a tough one. Either the defensive end's got to knock it down quickly. But I think that one's going to be cloudy. So here we go. We got a split on this one as well.
This one's just purely based off of coaching technique. That's all this one's based off of, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we will revisit all this next week. That's for sure.
Yep.
All right. Moving on to Hump Day. Josh Allen throws for 300 yards and 3 total touchdowns. Now, not necessarily throwing for 3 touchdowns, just he accounts for 3 touchdowns. Herm, lead us off.
Clear. I got him scoring 31 points, and I don't think we'll be doing it on our running backs won't be doing it on the ground. When we get into that red zone, he's either going to make a play with his legs or with his arms. So that's going to go
short yardage back in the league.
Yeah, that's right. So that's going to go into that 3 touchdown total. So I'm going clear on that one.
Evan?
I'm going to say solely based off of early game volume. Well, partially based off of early game volume, sorry. And maybe later just shorter passes to kind of like have like a partial run game, just a way to keep the clock going. I'd say he would get to 300 yards, and then I could also see him, being the goal line, the running back vulture that he usually tends to be.
Yeah.
I like that,
And-
the running back
I'm
vulture.
going to go clear on that one.
And like I said, I didn't finish the whole game last night, but I certainly saw the stat line of Dak Prescott after halftime, and he nearly hit 300 yards at halftime. We've seen Josh do that. You know,
Yeah.
he's a guy where I felt like if some of those games were close last year at the end of the season, we're talking 5,000 yards. There's some games where we clearly kind of, you know, the Broncos game, the Pats game. Oh, we got a great comment here. I agree with that one.
Quarterbacks are trash.
Trash is a bit much, but
Yeah, trash.
Listen, sometimes trash is treasure to others. So,
yeah.
all right, Thursday, at least 48 combined points are scored. Now, 48 is the over/under. So basically, we're going over/under. I'm going to lead it off. I think this, you know, based on my prediction, this is clear. I believe that last year's game, I mean, it was cold, right? I think we got some flurries in the beginning of last year's game.
It was
it was
windy. I recall it being very windy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Very windy.
It was
but windy
December in Buffalo.
It was Buffalo, exactly.
This is
So,
the
yeah, I
location
think-
where in December there will be that lake effect weather.
Yeah. I've been there.
So yeah, I mean, based on my prediction, I got to go clear. So this is a nice 75-degree fall day, sun shining. We're good to go. Herm, what do you think? I think I know what you think, but tell
Well, I
us.
had the game at 31-21, so to stay true to my prediction, I have to go with clear.
Yeah, Evan.
Well, and because of my prediction, which was 27-17, which is right at 44.
You
Yeah.
got him down for cloudy.
Yeah.
All righty. Moving right along. That's funny. I had 6. I got a bonus one. Hell, let's make it the 6-day forecast. The broadcast brings up the William and Mary coach connection.
Okay, that's like
That's
That's
a
like-
softball.
friggin' sunshine, everyone gets sunburnt kind of day.
Yeah, they're definitely going to beat that one. You think so too, Herm?
And they're going to bring out the pictures of when they were on the side together at William and Mary, and
Mm-hmm.
and how they love each other, and the coaching tree, the guy that put them together. Yeah. I mean,
Iron sharpens iron. And one was on the
That's
defense.
right.
Yeah.
Even though he doesn't play with them anymore, because I believe he went to Arizona, I want to say. Why do I have the feeling they're going to say something like, you know, today they're starting Najee Harris, and they drafted Harris to replace James Conner, who he had cancer at one point. They have to bring up the cancer at all times.
Well, there's
If you
definitely
mention James Conner,
in those production meetings, you definitely you get those softballs for sure. And I think the William and Mary connection is going to be it. But lastly, to finish us off,
well, that was a
'cause I can't-
softball for us.
Yeah,
that too, yeah.
that's true. To finish it off, Boogie Basham is inactive. Evan, what do you think?
I am going to say rain. He's just going to be active. That one's just a yes or no. So it's, yeah, I'm going to go rain.
Well, and then let's dovetail from that into who do you? I mean, I don't think all 10 defensive linemen, not including Starr. I don't think they're all going to be active. Who do you think is going to? Me and Jeremy and James were talking about this the other night. Who do you think they'll end up making inactive?
See, the reason why I don't think they'll make him inactive is mainly just because, he looked good in spots in the preseason, and he's their second-round pick, so it would just look a little weird.
AJ Vanessa.
That too.
Inactive.
That is true. I'd say if they make anyone inactive, it might be. I think it might be Obata, honestly.
Well, see, that's a great point because to me it's one or the other, and I'm saying he's inactive just because I think they're going to give Obata the nod because he has the experience. Just based on the way this team has ran, a lot of times they go with, you know, outside of guys like Trey White and Tremaine Edmonds, most of the guys kind of marinate a little bit. So I'm going to say it's a clear, but this is one where Might get that high-low pressure, and who knows what ends up happening. Herm, what do you think?
I don't know. I think rain. I think, as Evan said, his second-round pick, he looked pretty good, in spots in the preseason. And I think they'll give him a shot, especially in the opening in this game. And Kubata, I think, will be inactive. But
You think he'll be active?
Yeah, I think he'll be active.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well,
we could all be wrong. And they're both active. You never know.
Yeah. So we'll find out tomorrow.
I was going through it's 48. You get to keep an extra offensive lineman, I believe. Where you can keep 8. So that would be 7 inactive. So the way I see it would be, I don't think any corners will be inactive. I think we need all of them. Maybe DeMar Hamlin is inactive because Saran Neals could be your break glass in case of emergency, 4th safety.
Great special teams.
Yeah, and then maybe either Dotson or what's his name? The other
Smith.
Yeah, Andre Smith. I think one of those guys will be inactive because they both, they're reserve backers and they both can play special teams. Got to be at least one guy on the defensive line. Tommy Doyle on the offensive line. Matt Breida. I think they might treat Breida the same way they treated
Yeldon, I believe.
TJ Yeldon, yeah. So it's always interesting. I always hated that rule. Why can't you make the 53 man? Why can't we just dress them all?
Well, not only that, I think what would be cool is like if you make the 53 man, you have to be active for like a certain amount of games. So like that creates another thing where it's like, okay, you have to deactivate other guys for a certain amount of games too, if that's the case.
Yeah. Now that would be interesting. That would make it a whole lot more interesting, the decision-making process, right?
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to keep track of those throughout the season, and we'll just revisit it, and we'll give props when it's necessary, and we can have a little discussion if that's not the case. So before we get out of here, we're going to bring up a take from the fans. I think we got 1 or 2 over here. Andrew Jones has 4 sacks, and Russo accounting for 1.5 of them. So I'll start. I don't think there's any way that we get 4 sacks just for the fact of them getting the ball out quick.
Yeah.
I don't think it really has any weight towards our defensive linemen, but I just don't think it's that type of game. But that being said, I think if there's anyone to get 1.5 sacks, I think it might be Gregory Rousseau or Jerry Hughes going against the young left tackle. Herm, what do you think? I think this is going to be this is a very cloudy take in my opinion.
I think we can get 4 sacks. So,
all righty,
Andrew, I like it. I'm clear with you on that one. I think I tell you, our defense is going to be aggressive. We're going to come out aggressive.
Well, I hope you both are right.
All right.
Same thing as you, Trav. Like, I just don't see Ben holding onto the ball long enough that lets them get to him. Now, I could see an awful amount of pressure, but finishing sacks, I can't see a ton of. So, I agree that if like there is 1.5 sacks from a particular player, it would probably be Hughes up against the left tackle.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry Hughes, I think, has been quietly put under the microscope by a lot of Bills fans. He makes good money, and you kind of get put on notice when you go back-to-back in the draft, selecting guys at your own position. Not to mention he came into camp hurt. That said, all that can be erased by just playing well. I mean, we all know Jerry Hughes is a good player. He's produced a lot of pressure, but as our guy Jeremy always says, once we got rid of that big defensive line, those couple years that we had.
Yeah, the 2 Williams and Darius.
Yeah,
and Hughes. Yeah.
The numbers weren't there. I mean, he went from 10 sacks to perennial 5 sacks a year. So I've always been a defender of Jerry Hughes. I like the way he plays. He plays with an edge. I think he brings something to the defense that not a lot of guys have, and anyone who's played the game knows if you have that edge, it is the difference when you're playing with similar competition.
Yeah.
But other than that, let's get some closing thoughts going on before we head on out of here. Evan, why don't you lead us off?
Honestly, I think we've pretty much covered everything. The only thing I'm particularly, let's say, keeping an eye on is I want to see Josh and Diggs' chemistry, how strong it is still, since Diggs has been out all preseason. Not that I think it'll be bad or anything. It's just, sometimes it might take a game for them to get going. So I wouldn't be shocked if Diggs actually has a pretty quiet game, especially since the Steelers are going to be covering him a lot. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing some of the other players step up, and I'm hoping from a big game from Isaiah McKenzie, but I always am.
So dirty. Herm, and closing thoughts.
Well, I think the offense is going to be outstanding. As I predicted, I think they'll put up at least, I said 31-21, so I'm saying at least 31 points. I think we can have a big day offensively. And defensively, I've said that I think the defense is going to be aggressive. We got a lot of talent there. You were just talking about Jerry Hughes. He has some edge, and sometimes that edge causes him. He's taking some bad penalties for us. But at the same time, I think he's
cussing out officials in the tunnel.
But I think also he's a good mentor for the young guys, the young edge guys that we do have too, because he's got mileage on him. So as you said, drafting those young guys, he sees the end is near. But hopefully, with having said that if the end is near, he can take this one away and get that chip.
Exactly.
Take that chip with him and walk up into the sunset. I'll be very, very happy.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have said it any better myself, guys. We've touched on a lot of points. I think we covered a lot of ground. There's not much left to be said with the X's and O's of the game. But one thing we haven't touched on is fans in the stands. Being 31 years old, I think ever since I was able to drive, I started going up to games. Herm knows it's a 6-hour drive for us. It's no walk in the park. It's a long drive, and with getting an Airbnb or hotel, it's never been the cheapest either. I always promised myself that when the Bills get a home playoff game, I'm going to be there. And it was robbed. It was robbed from us. So it was very sad watching the games where, I mean, maybe it was better that we weren't allowed to go, because that Taron Johnson pick six, that place would have fell. I mean, there would have been casualties. That the stands would have buckled from underneath it. But back on a serious note, it was sad watching all the success that guys like me and Evan, who we really haven't gotten to experience it. We got to see them do it from afar, and I think it's Bills Mafia on Sunday is going to take it to another level. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be to the detriment of the Bills offense, because it's hard to contain yourself, especially when you're moving the ball. So I really am excited to see the fans. I mean, the RV lots are already full. I mean, that's a staple right there. I was listening to Tasker today, and he's saying they're just short of hanging up, having a laundry hanging up. It looked like they'd be in there for 2 weeks. But it's going to be great seeing the fans, and a lot of these guys who have helped make this team a championship caliber team. Your Diggs, guys like Diggs specifically, they haven't gotten to experience this.
That's right.
And you both know it's different. Walking through that tunnel, seeing the field, it's just like this euphoric feeling. So for all the fans who get to go, maybe sometime it might be your first game, it might be your 100th game. Go in there and represent. Enjoy yourself. Make it out of the game. Don't fall asleep. I can't tell you how many times I got some guy falling asleep next to me. He has one too many in the parking lot. Enjoy it because I know we will. And on that note, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Oh, wait. Let's go Buffalo.
All right, everyone. Have a good night. See you Sunday.
All right. Have a good